The moment I stepped into that chandelier-lit ballroom, every breath in my chest tightened like the room already knew what was coming. It's strange how you can go years without seeing the people who raised you, only to realize one look can rip every scar wide open. Before any of it happened, before the microphone, the folder, the public execution my brother had planned, I should probably tell you who I am. My name is Valerie Brooks, I'm 33 years old, and I built a company from a cracked laptop and a mattress on the floor. If you'd told the version of me 6 years ago that I'd ever walk into a country club wearing a tailored suit instead of borrowed clothes, she would have laughed until it hurt. But that version of me died the night everything started. Christmas Eve in our Albany dining room, with the oak table that wobbled like it was trying to escape. Back then, I was 27, exhausted from a coding boot camp that hadn't paid off, sitting at a holiday dinner praying for peace. The turkey steamed between us like a warning flare. My dad set his carving knife down like a judge delivering a sentence and said it without blinking. "Valerie, you'll start working for Connor on Monday. Full-time. Executive assistant." I froze. The gravy boat gleamed in front of me like a mirror reflecting everything I hadn't achieved. "I already have interviews lined up in the city," I said, though my voice barely carried. Connor, 23, smug, the sun around which my parents' world revolved, leaned back and laughed. "You think tech companies want someone who barely finished community college? Come on, Val. Wait a sec. Go ahead and subscribe. It's free. Completely free. All right, let's keep going." My mom sipped her wine with that tight smile she saved for disappointment. "Without family, you'll end up under a bridge. This is your safety net." Safety net. What they really meant was leash. 2 years I'd spent hustling for freelance gigs, teaching myself Python in coffee shops that threw me out at closing time. Meanwhile, Connor crashed his way through business school on their dime. Now they wanted me fetching his coffee, scheduling his lunches, digitizing his ego. I pushed my plate away. "I'm not your backup plan." Dad's jaw snapped tight. "Ungrateful." Mom exhaled sharply. Connor smirked like he'd won. And then something inside me, something small and neglected, finally stood up. Literally. The linen napkin crumpled in my hand. The gravy boat tipped, red spilling across the tablecloth like a crime scene. My mother gasped. My father shot to his feet. But my voice stayed steady for the first time in years. "I'm done." I walked out without my coat. The December air slapped me all the way to my car. Connor shouted something about me regretting it, but the wind swallowed his voice. That 40-minute drive back to Albany felt like a lifetime. By the time I parked outside a rundown co-working space on State Street, my hands shook. I had $300 to my name, a laptop mostly held together by stubbornness, and no plan whatsoever. Good enough. I slept on the office sofa that first night, wrapped in a scratchy blanket from the lost and found. To earn my keep, I fixed the building's broken booking system by 3 a.m., patching code from online forums. Word spread. A non-profit needed help automating donor tracking. They paid in cash. They referred me to the state education department. The work snowballed. 6 months later, I rented a tiny studio above a bagel shop. The smell of onions woke me every dawn, but it was mine. I hired Garrett Lee, a friend from a training program who'd been laid off from a defense contractor. We split equity because neither of us had anything else to split. Our pitch: software to streamline government procurement. Somehow, the state bit. $250,000 later, we were eating takeout pizza on the office floor. Garrett raised his slice and joked about bridges. I laughed, pretending my chest wasn't aching at the memory. Year by year, project by project, we clawed upward. Highway systems, emergency response networks, snowplow routing. By year 4 we had employees, actual employees, 30 of them. Investors circled, but I wasn't giving up control to anyone. Not after what I'd walked away from. By the time GovTech took up 2 floors of a renovated warehouse with views of the Hudson, the Brooks family had become just a bruise I didn't touch. Until the text came. My cousin Riley, the only neutral person in the clan, messaged out of nowhere. Grandpa's back in the hospital. They say this Christmas might be his last. Come home, Val. He keeps asking for you. I stared at the screen, pulse heavy in my throat. At the same moment, something else hit my inbox, a forward from my own email address to a private investigation firm in Manhattan. My calendar invites. My expense reports. A photo of me leaving the office late at night. Someone had spoofed my credentials. Someone inside. And then Garrett called. Val, he said quietly. Connor just hired the firm that got that email. He's building a takedown packet for you to hand out at the Christmas party. My breath stalled. The invitation Riley sent suddenly made sense. This wasn't about Grandpa. Connor wanted an audience. I paced the room, cold dread crawling up my spine. If I showed up unprepared, he'd bury me publicly. If I stayed away, he'd control the whole narrative. The risk pressed down like a weight. Then a single thought cut through the noise. He thinks he knows my story, but he doesn't know what I've built. And that was the moment everything shifted. The moment I booked the flight. The moment I chose to walk straight into the fire. What I didn't know, not yet, was that Connor wasn't the only one playing a game that night, and someone else had already moved the first piece. Walking into Nolan Hale's office the next morning felt like stepping into a winter storm made of fluorescent lights and unspoken threats. The blinds were half drawn, slicing cold sunlight across metal filing cabinets and a coffee mug with rings older than some careers. I'd barely slept. My nerves thrummed like exposed wires. Valerie Brooks, he said, not bothering to shake my hand. Sit. I did, smoothing the front of my coat, trying to read the man behind the desk. Cropped hair, tie askew, a look in his eyes like he'd already weighed me and decided I wasn't the problem in the room. You know why I'm here, I said. He didn't argue. Instead, he unlocked a drawer and set 2 envelopes between us like evidence bags. One marked V. Brooks, the other C. Brooks. When he opened the first one, mine, papers spilled out in neat, methodical layers. State contracts, property records, financial summaries, photos from conferences and signing ceremonies I hadn't thought about in years. My company's life laid out with surgical precision. Everything checks out, Nolan said. No debts. No ethics complaints. Growth curve matches every filing. My pulse steadied. For the first time in days, something inside me uncoiled. Then he slid the second envelope forward. Off the books, he said quietly. Inside, wire transfers, Cayman accounts, emails from Connor's partners demanding repayment, a memo delaying audits until after the holiday event to deflect scrutiny. Each page felt heavier than the last. This is embezzlement, I whispered. It's worse, Nolan said. And he paid me to deliver it to your family like a funeral program. The betrayal should have stunned me. Instead, a strange calm settled in my bones, like my mind had finally caught up to the war I'd been dragged into. Why give this to me? He paused. When he spoke again, the words sounded scraped from old wounds. I had a brother like yours. Golden boy. Could do no wrong. He emptied my accounts, left me blamed for his debts. I'm done protecting people who weaponize family loyalty. He pushed both envelopes fully across the desk. Walk into that country club with your eyes open, Valerie. I left his office with the envelopes burning a quiet hole in my briefcase. But the pushback came fast. That night, in my hotel room, a letter hit my inbox. My cousin Ryan, the family lawyer, threatening injunctions, restraining orders, lawsuits. All to protect the family legacy. Translation. Protect Connor. Dad called minutes later, his voice thick with cigar smoke and disappointment. Don't make a scene, he growled. Connor's riding high. Investor money is flowing. Don't ruin this for him. For him, I asked. He didn't hesitate. He deserves to shine. Click. Dial tone. I stared at the city lights through the window, the glow fractured across the glass. For a moment, I felt like that girl again, the one who'd walked away from a table she no longer belonged at. But I wasn't her anymore. The next morning, Garrett met me in the hotel lobby with coffee and a USB drive. Encrypted backup, he said. In case someone tries anything stupid. They already have, I answered. He placed a hand on my shoulder. Then go make them regret it. The choice was clear now. Show up prepared, or let Connor rewrite my story. And Grandpa, he didn't have many Christmases left. Maybe not even one. Riley texted. Grandpa perked up. Asked if you still play chess. I smiled at the screen for the first time in days. Tell him the Queen's ready to move. By evening, I walked through the country club doors, the air scented with pine and polished wood. The foyer glowed gold. Conversations hummed like a beehive dressed in formal wear. Riley found me first, breathless, notebook tucked in her clutch. Her red dress cut through the crowd like a flare. He's been waiting for you, she whispered. I followed her through clusters of relatives who pretended not to stare. Grandpa sat in a velvet booth, oxygen tube resting lightly under his nose, eyes sharper than the rest of his failing body. When he saw me, he lifted one brow. Queen's Gambit, he rasped. Accepted, I murmured, taking his hand. Connor was across the room near the stone fireplace, basking in laughter and spotlight. His tuxedo looked like it had been stitched from arrogance. He didn't see me yet. Good. I scanned the ballroom. Senators, budget directors, state officials, the exact people who needed to hear about our emergency routing software. Business and family colliding in one glittering avalanche. Then Connor stepped up to the podium. Everyone, he said, tapping the microphone. The feedback squealed just enough to tense the room. Before dinner, a quick toast. And a little truth. My stomach tightened. He lifted a thick folder stamped with a private investigation seal. Printed packets began passing from row to row. When Riley handed me one, her brows knit with concern. The cover read, Valerie Brooks, Background Verification Report. Connor paced the stage with a smirk, building drama like a man lighting a fuse. Page 1, he announced. Claims of being a CEO. Page 2, alleged state contracts. Page 3. And then his voice broke. Not cracked. Broke. The page he held wasn't what he expected. His face drained to the color of bone. Valerie Brooks, CEO of GovTech, he read faintly. $50 million procurement contract. Forbes 30 under 30. The room erupted into murmurs, phones whipping out as people verified the headline. My mother's napkin twisted in her fist. My father's glass froze midair. A senator stepped toward me, not him. Ms. Brooks, your demo last quarter was exceptional. We should discuss next steps. Connor, desperate, flipped to the last page, searching for something, anything, to regain control. Silence collapsed over the crowd. Then Ryan, our family attorney, lunged forward, ripped the final page from Connor's hand, and read it aloud like a prosecutor delivering a verdict. Unauthorized transfers. Offshore accounts. Embezzlement. Active SEC investigation. Gasps tore through the ballroom. My mother went white. My father dropped his whiskey, glass shattering across the hardwood. And then, the ballroom doors slammed open. 2 federal agents strode inside, badges flashing in the chandelier glow. Connor Brooks, the lead said, voice sharp. Step away from the podium. Connor's knees buckled. His hands rose. The crowd parted like he was radioactive. I stood rooted to the floor, heart pounding, watching the moment the golden child finally fell. But I wasn't prepared, not even a little, for what was about to hit me next. When the handcuffs clicked around Connor's wrists, the entire ballroom seemed to exhale, one long, stunned breath that lingered in the air like smoke. The string quartet didn't move. The servers didn't blink. Even the twinkling lights above us looked frozen in place, reflecting off the polished floor where my father's shattered whiskey glass still glistened like a warning. But the shock detonated hardest in me. For years, I had imagined confrontations, imagined shouting, imagined leaving them speechless with success. I had never imagined federal agents walking my brother out between holiday garlands and the scent of cinnamon-glazed ham. The agents guided him past me. His eyes, wild, pleading, disbelieving, met mine for a split second. I didn't flinch. He opened his mouth like he wanted to call my name, but the lead agent tugged his arm, and the moment snapped apart. Mom covered her face. Dad swore under his breath. And Grandpa just shook his head slowly, like he'd seen this move on the chessboard a long time ago. Checkmate, kid, he'd said. But the truth was, victory never felt this heavy. Dinner never happened. Guests scattered with excuses, embarrassed coughs, promises to follow up after the holidays. Senators slipped out discreetly, aides in tow. The country club staff did their best to keep smiles plastered on, but even they kept glancing toward the doors where Connor had disappeared. Riley touched my elbow. You okay? I wanted to say yes. I wanted to say this was justice, that I felt triumphant, vindicated. But instead I said, I need a minute. I slipped away to an empty corridor near the coat room, the dim lights humming softly overhead. My chest felt tight, as if 6 years of silenced pain were finally clawing up, demanding space. For a long moment, I simply breathed. I heard soft footsteps behind me. Grandpa, leaning heavily on Riley for support, stood just a few feet away. His voice was faint, but steady. You did what you had to. I moved closer, taking his hand gently. His skin was thin, cool, fragile. I didn't want it to happen like this. I know, he whispered. But truth comes like winter storms, slow building, then sudden. You can't always choose the moment. His grip tightened with the last of his strength. Don't let them pull you back under. You climbed too far. I swallowed hard. I won't. After Grandpa returned to his booth, I finally collected my coat and stepped outside for a burst of cold air. Snow drifted lightly across the parking lot, swirling under the lamplight. My breath fogged in front of me as I stood on the icy pavement, the winter silence washing over me like a bomb. But the night wasn't finished. 3 months later, long after the headlines, the depositions, the formal statements, I learned just how long consequences can stretch. It was 1:12 a.m. when my phone buzzed in the dark, vibrating against the nightstand. A blocked number. I stared at it for 4 rings before answering. Val, the voice rasped. It's me. Connor. He sounded different, smaller, brittle, hollowed out, like someone had shaken him until only the broken pieces remained. I sat up in the dim room, the city glow spilling faintly across the floor. Where are you? I asked. A motel off Route 9, he said. The one with the flickering neon sign. They took the house. Investors sued. The fund collapsed. His voice cracked. I've got nothing left. Silence bled through the line. I could hear a distant vending machine humming, a muted siren, the echo of someone passing outside his room. His breathing stumbled. I need help, he finally said. Just a loan. Seed money. Something to get me back up. We're family, Val. You owe me that. I felt the weight of his words closing around me like an old trap. Family had always meant obligation with no reciprocity. Loyalty demanded, never earned. And for once, the answer was clear. I owe you nothing, I said quietly. He inhaled sharply, disbelief mixing with anger. You can't just, Val, I'm your brother. Blood doesn't buy loyalty, I replied. And it doesn't erase what you did. He tried again, pleading, bargaining, guilt-tripping, but I ended the call before he could spiral deeper. Then I blocked the number and set the phone face down, feeling the quiet settle around me like armor. In the morning, headlines confirmed everything he'd hinted at. SEC ban. Civil penalties pending. Assets frozen. No appeal filed. I made coffee in silence, watching steam rise from the mug as the Hudson flowed steadily below my windows, indifferent, constant, unbothered by the storms of human failure. Some endings roar. Some whisper. Some feel like being handed back the life you rebuilt alone. As I stood there, listening to the morning hum of my apartment, one truth crystallized fully for the first time. Kinship means nothing without trust. Power means nothing without integrity. And freedom, real freedom, begins the moment you stop waiting for permission. I sipped my coffee, exhaled slowly, and let the past finally fall away. I had survived my family. I had survived their doubt, their control, their narratives. And I had rewritten my own. Checkmate.